From this moment, you're fired effective immediately. Pack your things and get out of this company now.
The first time I tried to fire someone from my father's company, I wasn't even an employee. I was 28 years old. I didn't have a desk there. I didn't have a title. I didn't have a single responsibility inside the company. Yet somehow I walked into the executive floor, pointed at one of my father's most trusted associates, and told the HR director to fire him. The man had spoken to me like I was just another spoiled kid who had wandered into a building he didn't belong in. Maybe he was right, but I didn't care. Fire him, I said. The HR director stared at me. Mr. Cross. I said, fire him. The man I was pointing at slowly stood from his chair. You don't have the authority to make that decision. I smiled. That's funny. I looked at him. Neither did you when you decided to speak to me like that. He opened his mouth. Then the doors behind me opened, and the entire room went silent. My father had arrived. He looked at me for a few seconds, not like a father looking at his son, like a CEO looking at a problem that had just walked into his building. Jaden, one word. That was all it took. I already knew I was in trouble. Dad? Office. He turned around, no argument, no explanation, just one word, office. I followed him, and somehow, walking behind my own father through a company that would one day be mine, I felt like a stranger. He closed the door behind us, then he turned. Who gave you permission to interfere with my company? I leaned against the desk. Your employee was disrespectful. So I told HR to remove him. My father stared at me. You told HR, he paused, to fire one of my senior executives? Yes, he nodded slowly. Then something almost like a smile appeared on his face. Not amusement, disappointment. You really believe everything belongs to you because you're my son? I looked away. Isn't it supposed to? No. The answer came so quickly that it almost sounded rehearsed. This company belongs to me. He stepped closer. You don't work here. I don't want to. Then stop acting like you do. I laughed quietly. That was the problem with my father. He could buy me anything, except the one thing I actually wanted. I didn't ask for your company, I said. No. He looked at me coldly. You never ask for anything. I frowned. What is that supposed to mean? It means you have everything. He pointed toward me. Cars, money, a house, whatever you want, whenever you want it. His voice remained calm, almost emotionless. But somehow, he paused. You still behave like you've been deprived of something. I stared at him, because he was right. He just didn't understand what it was. I wanted a father, I said quietly. For the first time, his expression changed. Only for a second, then it disappeared. You're 28 years old, Jaden. So stop behaving like a child. I laughed. Maybe I wouldn't have to. I stopped. He waited. I looked at him. Never mind. He turned away. Get out. I didn't move. Dad, get out of my company. His voice became colder. And don't come back unless I ask you to. I stared at him. You're serious? I've never been more serious. I walked toward the door. Then he added, and Jaden? I turned. If you need anything. He reached into his desk drawer, pulled out a black card, placed it on the desk. Use that. I stared at it. Another card, another unlimited account, another expensive solution to a problem I hadn't asked him to solve. I picked it up. That's your answer? He didn't look at me. What? To everything. I held up the card. You don't know how to talk to me, so you buy me things. Silence. He finally looked at me. His eyes were hard. Don't mistake what I provide for what you deserve. That sentence stayed with me. Before we continue, tell us where you're watching from in the comments section. To support the channel, you can visit our store and check our new product ranks. It's designed to help you pause, understand what's really happening in your relationship, and make clearer decisions instead of reacting in the heat of the moment. There's no one telling you what decision to make. You work through it yourself. The link is in the description. Let's get back to today's story. Long after I left the building, because my father had never stopped giving me things. He just never gave me himself. People saw my life and thought I was lucky. They saw the cars, the penthouse, the private driver, the expensive watches, the vacations, the clothes that cost more than some people's monthly salaries. They thought I had everything. And technically, I did. Except for one thing. I couldn't remember the last time my father had hugged me. Not when I graduated. Not when I turned 21. Not when I turned 28. He sent gifts. He sent money. He sent assistance. He sent cars. But he never came. I used to think that meant he was busy. Then I got older and I realized something worse. Maybe he simply didn't want to. I didn't understand why. Not completely. There were pieces of the story I knew. My mother died when I was born. That was what everyone told me. But nobody ever talked about what happened before that. Whenever I asked, the room changed. People became uncomfortable. My father became silent. So I stopped asking. Maybe that was easier. Maybe some questions were better left unanswered. At least, that's what I believed. Until the night I met Serena. That night, I didn't take the car. I didn't take the driver. I didn't wear anything expensive enough to attract attention. I just wanted to walk. For once. I wanted to know what it felt like to exist without people knowing my last name. I stopped at a small cafe on the other side of town. Nothing special. Plastic chairs, cheap coffee, people talking too loudly. Nobody cared who I was. And strangely, I liked it. I was sitting alone when someone dropped a notebook beside my table. Sorry. I looked up. She was standing there. Simple clothes, natural hair, no designer bag, no expensive jewelry, just a tired smile. "You're sitting on my favorite chair," she said. I looked around. "There are 20 empty chairs." "I know," she smiled. "But that's mine," I laughed. "That's your argument? It's working." I moved, she sat down, and somehow, for the first time that day, I smiled without forcing it. Her name was Serena. She studied accounting. She was good with numbers, terrible at pretending to be impressed, and she had absolutely no idea who I was. That last part was probably why I couldn't stop talking to her. We talked for almost an hour, about school, work, life, nothing important, and yet it was the most important conversation I'd had in months. When I finally stood to leave, she looked at me. "You're strange," I smiled. "That's not usually what women say. Maybe the women you meet usually want something from you." I froze. She didn't know how close she'd come to the truth. She picked up her notebook. "Good night, Jaden." I stared at her. "How do you know my name?" She pointed at the receipt. I looked down. My name was printed right there. I laughed. "Right." She smiled, then walked away. I watched her disappear through the door, and for the first time in years, I didn't think about my father. I didn't think about money. I didn't think about the company. I thought about going back tomorrow. I didn't know it yet. But Serena was about to become the first person who would make me question everything I thought I knew about my life, including my father, including myself. And eventually, the empire I'd spent my entire life trying not to inherit. Because while I was learning how to live without my father's approval, someone inside his company was already preparing to take everything he had built, and the first person who noticed it wasn't my father. It was Serena. I just didn't know that yet. I thought meeting Serena was going to be the biggest thing that happened to me that month. I was wrong. The biggest thing was the phone call that came 3 weeks later. It happened at 6:17 in the morning. My father's private number appeared on my screen. I stared at it. He almost never called me. If he needed something, an assistant called. If he wanted me to have money, a transfer appeared. If it was my birthday, a gift arrived. My father had perfected the art of being present without actually being there. So when I saw his number that morning, I knew something was wrong. I answered. "Dad?" Silence. Then his voice. "Come to the company." I sat up. "Why?" Another pause. I said, "Come." The line went dead. No explanation. No goodbye, just that. I looked at the clock. 6:18, and for some reason, I couldn't shake the feeling that my father had just called me because something had already gone wrong. I didn't go immediately. I showered, got dressed, then I stopped at the cafe. I don't know why. Maybe I needed to see Serena. Maybe I wanted one normal conversation before walking back into my father's world. She was already there. Same table, same notebook, same coffee. She looked up when I approached. "You look worried." "Do I?" "Yes." She closed her notebook. "You usually walk like you own the pavement." I laughed. "My father called." Her expression changed. "Is he okay?" I don't know. That was the truth. For the first time in my life, I genuinely didn't know what was happening inside my father's company, and that bothered me more than I wanted to admit. Serena studied me. "Then maybe you should go find out." I nodded. Then she added, "Take me with you." I laughed. "No." "Why?" "Because it's complicated." She raised an eyebrow. "Everything with you is complicated." She wasn't wrong, but there was something else. Something I hadn't told her. My father didn't just own a company. He owned an empire, and the people inside it had never exactly welcomed me, especially after what happened with Victor, the executive I'd tried to fire, the same man my father had defended. I had a feeling he hadn't forgotten me. When I arrived at Cross Meridian Holdings, the building felt different, too quiet. People were moving quickly. Assistants were whispering, security was tighter than usual, and nobody looked me directly in the eyes. I walked toward the executive elevators. A security guard stepped in front of me. "I'm sorry, sir. You're not on the visitor list." I stared at him. "You know who I am." "Yes, sir." "Then move." He hesitated. Before he could answer, a familiar voice came from behind me. "Still giving orders in buildings where you don't work?" I turned. Victor, perfect suit, perfect smile, same arrogance. Except this time, he wasn't looking at me like a spoiled kid. He was looking at me like a problem. I smiled. "Still working for a man who doesn't trust you?" His smile disappeared. For a second, neither of us moved. Then he stepped aside. "Your father is waiting." That sentence bothered me. Not because my father was waiting, because Victor sounded almost pleased about it. My father's office door was open. I walked in. He wasn't sitting behind his desk. He was standing by the window. His hands were behind his back. "Sit." I sat. He remained standing. "Do you know why I called you?" "No." He finally turned. "You remember the first time you tried to fire Victor?" I frowned. "What about it?" "You were angry. He disrespected me. He challenged you." "Same thing." My father shook his head. "No." He walked toward the desk. "It's not the same thing." Then he placed a folder in front of me. I looked at it. "What is this?" "Something you need to understand." I opened it. Financial statements, shareholder reports, transaction records. Numbers I barely understood. I looked up. "Why are you showing me this?" My father didn't answer immediately. Instead, he asked a question. "Do you know how much of this company belongs to you?" I laughed. "Nothing." His eyes hardened. "That isn't what I asked." I stared at him. He pushed another document toward me. I read the first page, then the second. My smile disappeared. "What is this?" "Your inheritance." I looked up. "My what?" "Your shares." I couldn't speak. For 28 years, I'd spent my life believing my father wanted me nowhere near his company, and now he was telling me I'd already been part of it. Just quietly, without knowing. "Why?" He looked away. "Because one day," he stopped, then corrected himself. "Forget it." That wasn't an answer, and I knew it. "Dad, what's happening?" He didn't respond. Instead, he walked back to the window. "The company has problems." "What kind?" "Problems you don't understand yet." I stood. "Then explain them." He turned toward me. For the first time, I saw something in his face that I'd never seen before. Fear. Just for a second. Then it vanished. "You need to stay away from this," I frowned. "You called me here. I called you here to warn you." "About what?" He looked at me. "About the people you think are loyal to me." Silence. My heart started beating faster. "Who?" He didn't answer. Instead, he said, "Go home." I stared at him. "You're serious?" "Yes." "You call me here, show me documents about an inheritance I didn't know existed, tell me your company has problems, and then tell me to go home?" "Yes." "Why?" My father looked directly into my eyes. "Because if you stay," he paused, "you may become the reason they come after you." I didn't understand. Not completely. But I understood enough to know something was very wrong. I picked up the folder. He immediately said, "Leave that." I stopped. "Why?" "Because you don't need it." I slowly put it back down. Then I walked toward the door, but before I left, my father said my name. Jaden. I turned. He looked like he wanted to say something personal, something a father might say to his son. Instead, he simply said, "Take care of yourself." I nodded and walked out. It was the closest thing to affection he'd shown me in years. I should have known that wasn't a good sign. Outside the building, Serena was waiting. She took one look at my face. "What happened?" "My father says the company has problems." She frowned. "What kind?" "I don't know." "You don't know?" "He wouldn't tell me." She thought for a moment. Then she reached into my hand. I hadn't realized I'd been holding something. The folder. I looked down. I had taken it with me after all. I opened it. Serena leaned closer. She scanned the pages, then stopped. "Jaden." "What?" She pointed at one of the figures. "This doesn't make sense." I looked at her. "What doesn't?" "This transfer." She tapped the page. "Money is leaving one account." She turned the page and coming back through another company. So why would they do that?" I shrugged. She looked at me. You said your father doesn't trust anyone. Yes. And he told you to stay away. Yes. She closed the folder tray. Then maybe. She looked toward the Meridian building. You should find out who he was afraid of. Neither of us noticed the man standing across the street, watching us, watching the folder, watching Serena. He pulled out his phone, sent one message. He has the documents. A reply came almost immediately. Then we have a problem. And somewhere inside Cross Meridian Holdings, someone who had been waiting 28 years for Jaden Cross to become important, finally realized that he had. The next morning, I woke up with one question in my head. Why would my father, the man who had spent 28 years keeping me away from his company, suddenly warn me about the people inside it? I didn't have an answer, but Serena did. She had spent half the night going through the documents I brought home, and when I walked into her apartment that morning, she was already waiting for me with 3 sheets of paper spread across the table. You were right, she said. I frowned. About what? She pointed at the numbers. Your father's company isn't losing money. I stared at her. What? It looks like it's losing money. She tapped another page. But somebody is moving it. I pulled out a chair. Explain. She took a pen. These payments are being recorded as operational expenses. She circled one figure, but they don't match the company's actual expenses. Then she circled another, and these companies receiving the money. She paused. They're connected. To who? She looked at me. I don't know yet. That answer should have frustrated me. Instead, it scared me, because Serena wasn't the kind of person who said I don't know easily. She was good with numbers, really good. And for the first time, I started wondering whether my father's warning had less to do with me and more to do with what I was about to discover. I went back to Cross Meridian Holdings. This time, I didn't walk in like I owned the place. I walked in quietly. I watched. People were moving around like everything was normal. Executives smiled, assistants answered phones, meetings continued. But once you knew what to look for, you could see the cracks. A conversation would stop when I walked past. Someone would close a laptop. Someone else would suddenly remember they had somewhere to be. And Victor watched me from the end of the hallway. He didn't approach. He didn't need to. He just smiled. That smile bothered me more than an argument would have. I walked into my father's office. He wasn't there. His chair was empty. His desk was clean, too clean. I looked around. Then I noticed something. A photograph. My father, my mother, and me. I had never seen it before. I picked it up. My mother was smiling. My father was smiling too. And for once, he wasn't looking at the camera. He was looking at her. I turned the photograph over. There was a date written on the back. The day I was born. Then beneath it, one sentence. The day I lost the woman I loved. I froze. My father's words from the previous night suddenly sounded different. He hadn't just been protecting me from the company. Maybe he had been protecting me from himself. I didn't get time to think about it. My father's assistant rushed into the office. Mr. Cross, I turned. Where is my father? She hesitated. He left earlier. Where? He didn't tell me. That wasn't normal. My father never left without telling his assistant where he was going. I looked at her. Did something happen? She shook her head. No. Then she paused. Actually, what? She lowered her voice. Your father cancelled 3 meetings this morning. Why? I don't know. I stared at her. She looked nervous. Too nervous. Who knows? She looked toward the hallway, then back at me. Nobody. That was when I realized something. She was afraid. Not of me, of someone else. That afternoon, my father finally called. Where are you? At the company. Silence. Then, I told you to stay away. I found something. His voice changed. What did you find? The transfers. Silence again. Then he said something I wasn't expecting. Jaden. His voice was weaker than before. Don't trust anyone. I stood up. Dad, what's happening? He coughed, hard. I heard something fall in the background. Dad? He didn't answer. Dad, the line went dead. I called back. Nothing. Again. Nothing. I grabbed my jacket. Serena was already at the door. What happened? My father. What about him? I think something's wrong. We reached his private residence 20 minutes later. Security was everywhere. 2 ambulances were outside. My stomach dropped. I ran inside, and there he was, my father, sitting in a chair, pale, exhausted. A doctor was checking his blood pressure. What happened? The doctor looked at me. He collapsed. I looked at my father. For a moment, he didn't look like the billionaire everyone feared. He just looked like an old man, a tired one. My father looked at me, and instead of saying something cold, he whispered, "I'm sorry." I froze. For what? He closed his eyes. "For making you hate me." I didn't know what to say, because I had spent my entire life believing my father didn't care about me. And now, for the first time, he sounded like a man who knew he might not have enough time left to explain why. But before I could ask, one of the doctors pulled me aside. "Your father needs rest. Is he going to be okay?" The doctor hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. That night, Serena stayed with me. We sat outside the hospital room. Neither of us spoke for a while. Then she reached for my hand. "You don't have to do this alone." I looked at her. "I don't even know what I'm supposed to do." She squeezed my hand. "Then we'll figure it out." I smiled faintly. "Why are you doing this?" She shrugged. "Because you're terrible at asking for help." I laughed. For the first time that day I felt normal. Then my phone vibrated. Unknown number. I opened the message. "Stop looking into the transfers." Another message appeared. "You don't understand who you're dealing with." I stared at the screen. Then a third message came, and Serena shouldn't be involved. My smile disappeared. I looked at her. She noticed immediately. "What is it?" I locked the phone. "Nothing." That was the first time I lied to Serena, not because I didn't trust her, because I suddenly realized someone was watching us, and whoever it was already knew her name. The next morning, my father's board called an emergency meeting. They said it was about his health. It wasn't. The moment I walked into that room, I knew. Every face was calm, every suit was perfect, every smile was polite, but underneath all of it, something was happening. The chairman stood. "Jaden, your father's condition requires stability." I nodded. "I agree." "Unfortunately," he continued, "you don't have the experience required to provide it." Victor leaned back in his chair. Then he smiled. I looked around the room. "Then who does?" Nobody answered. That silence told me enough. They weren't asking me to step aside. They had already decided I should. I leaned forward. "Interesting." The chairman frowned. "What is?" "I've been told my entire life that I don't belong in this company." I looked directly at Victor. "And now that my father is sick," I smiled, "suddenly everyone is very concerned about who belongs here." Nobody moved. Victor finally spoke. "This isn't a game, Jaden." I looked at him. "I know." Then I opened the folder Serena had prepared for me. And that's exactly why I'm going to start asking questions. For the first time, Victor's smile disappeared, and I realized something. My father hadn't been warning me about the company. He had been warning me about the people who were waiting for him to become weak. And now, they had finally noticed me. I thought the board meeting was the beginning of the war. I was wrong. It was only the moment they realized I was willing to fight. The moment I left that room, my phone vibrated. Another unknown number. "Stop." Just one word. I stared at it. Then another message appeared. "The next warning won't be for you." My blood went cold. I immediately looked at Serena. She was standing near the elevators, waiting for me. She had no idea what I had just read, and somehow that scared me more than the message itself. I walked toward her. "Serena, we need to leave." She frowned. "Why?" "Just trust me." She studied my face, then nodded. We walked toward the parking garage. Neither of us noticed the man standing across the street, watching, waiting. That evening, I went back through every document Serena had found. One name kept appearing, a company called Northbridge Advisory. Millions had been transferred to it over the last 18 months. The payments were disguised as consulting fees. But there was one problem. Northbridge didn't appear to have any real employees, no proper office, no public contracts, nothing that explained where the money was going. Serena stared at the screen. "Jaden, what?" She pointed at the registration documents. The company was incorporated 6 months before these payments started. "So?" "The registered director." She stopped. "What?" She turned the screen toward me. The director's name was someone I knew, someone who had been sitting in that boardroom. Victor. I leaned back. For a few seconds I couldn't speak. Then I laughed, not because it was funny, because I finally understood why everyone had looked so comfortable when they told me to step aside. They hadn't been waiting for my father to die. They had been preparing for it. The next morning, I confronted Victor. Not in the boardroom, in my father's office. He walked in without knocking. You wanted to see me? Yes. He closed the door. I pushed the document across the desk. Northbridge Advisory. His expression didn't change. You've been looking through company records. I have. That isn't your responsibility. I leaned back. Neither was firing your senior associate. His eyes narrowed. You've changed. I smiled. Maybe I finally had a reason to. He picked up the document, read it, then placed it back on the table. You don't understand business, Jaden, maybe, I pointed at the document, but I understand theft. His jaw tightened. You should be careful with accusations like that. And you should be careful leaving fingerprints. Silence. He stared at me. Then he smiled. That same calm smile. You really think you're going to run this company? No. I looked directly at him. I think I'm going to stop you from running it. He walked toward the door, then stopped. Without turning around, he said, Your father couldn't protect your mother. I froze. He turned slowly, and he won't be able to protect you either. Then he walked out. I sat there completely still, because I had never told Victor anything about my mother. Not once. That night, I asked my father about him. He was still recovering. Weak, but awake. Dad, he looked at me. Victor knows about Mom. His expression changed immediately. What did he say? I told him. My father's face went pale. Jaden, what? Stay away from him. Why? He looked toward the window. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, because Victor isn't the one you should be afraid of. I frowned. Then who? My father looked at me, and for the first time I saw genuine fear in his eyes. The people behind him. Before I could ask another question, his heart monitor began to beat faster. Doctors rushed into the room. I was pushed outside, and suddenly I was standing in the hallway again, alone, with another unanswered question. Who was behind Victor? Serena found me an hour later. She sat beside me. You look exhausted. I am. She reached for my hand. I didn't pull away. I found something, she said. I looked at her. What? She handed me a small envelope. There was a message inside. From who? I don't know. I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. 3 words were written across it. Look at home. I stared at Serena. What does that mean? She shook her head. I don't know. We went back to my father's house. The security team searched everything. Nothing. Until Serena noticed something behind an old bookshelf, a loose panel. She pulled it open. Inside was a small metal box. I stared at it. This belonged to my father. We opened it. Inside were old photographs, bank statements, medical records, and 1 letter. I picked it up. The handwriting was my father's. I began reading. Then I stopped. Serena noticed. What? I couldn't answer, because the letter wasn't about the company. It was about me. And the first sentence read, If you're reading this, Jaden, then I failed to tell you the truth about the day you were born. My hands began to shake. Serena moved closer. Jaden. I looked at her. For 28 years. I had believed my father hated me because he never wanted me. But maybe that wasn't the truth. Maybe the reason he could never look at me was because every time he did, he remembered something he had spent his entire life trying to forget. I unfolded the rest of the letter, and before I could read another line, the lights went out. Complete darkness. Then I heard a sound behind us. A door closing. Serena grabbed my arm. Jaden, I whispered, don't move. Something was in the room with us, and whoever it was hadn't come looking for the documents. They had come looking for the letter. The lights went out. Serena's fingers tightened around my arm. I could hear my own breathing. Then a drawer slammed shut somewhere behind us. Who's there? I shouted. No answer. I reached for my phone. The flashlight came on. The room was empty, but the envelope was gone. My stomach dropped. I turned towards Serena. The letter. She shook her head. I didn't touch it. Neither of us moved. Then I noticed something on the floor. A small black glove. Whoever had been in the room had left in a hurry, and they hadn't taken the box. Only my father's letter. That told me something. The letter wasn't just about my past. It was dangerous. The next morning, I went straight to the hospital. My father was awake. I walked into his room and placed the empty envelope on the table. Someone broke into your house. His face changed. They took your letter. He closed his eyes. For a few seconds, he looked exhausted. Then he whispered, I knew this day would come. What day? The day you'd finally ask me why I hated you. I froze. You know I've wondered. I know. Then tell me. He looked at me, and for the first time in my life, he didn't look like a billionaire. He looked like my father. I didn't hate you because you were my son. He swallowed. I hated what happened when you became my son. I didn't understand, so he continued. Your mother and I tried for years to have a child. His voice became quieter. Doctors told us it might never happen. But we kept trying. Pregnancy after pregnancy, hope after hope, and then your mother became pregnant with you. She was so happy. I remember thinking I'd finally been given everything I'd ever wanted. A family, an heir. Her. Then you were born, and she didn't survive. Silence. I couldn't breathe. My father looked away. Every time I looked at you, I saw the woman I lost. My eyes burned. You should have loved me anyway. I know. His voice cracked. I know. For the first time, I saw regret in his eyes. Real regret. Not the kind money could fix. Not the kind a gift could hide. The kind that stays with you for 28 years. I gave you everything I could buy, he whispered, because I didn't know how to give you the one thing you actually wanted. I looked at him. Your love. He nodded. I left the hospital with a different kind of anger. Not the anger I'd carried all my life, something heavier, because now I understood him. But understanding someone doesn't erase what they did to you. Serena was waiting outside. She looked at me. What happened? I told her. She didn't interrupt. When I finished, she simply took my hand. You deserve to know, I nodded. Then my phone rang. The company's legal department. Mr. Cross, we have a problem. What kind? 3 major accounts were frozen overnight. My stomach tightened. Why? There were unauthorized transfers. Where? He gave me the name. Northbridge Advisory. I closed my eyes. Victor, the attack wasn't over. It had just changed direction. I returned to Cross Meridian Holdings. This time, I wasn't walking in as the billionaire's spoiled son. I was walking in as the only person left standing between them and my father's company. The board was already meeting. Victor looked at me. You shouldn't be here. I pulled out a chair. I've heard that before. He frowned. I placed the documents on the table. 3 accounts were frozen. Nobody spoke. Millions were transferred. Still nothing. I looked around the room. Somebody is stealing from this company. Victor leaned forward. And you think you can stop it? I smiled. No. I looked directly at him. I know I can. One of the directors laughed. Laugh. You don't even understand the financial structure of this company. I glanced at Serena. She opened her laptop. Then she turned it toward the board. Neither did we. She tapped the screen. But we understand the numbers. The room went silent. She had traced the transfers, not just to Northbridge, to 3 other companies, then 5, then 8, all connected. And at the center of everything was Victor. His face finally changed. I stood. You've been moving my father's money for 18 months. Victor looked at me. You have no idea what you're accusing me of. I leaned closer. Then let's find out. That evening, something unexpected happened. Victor called me privately. Jaden. I stopped. What? You're making a mistake. Which one? Trusting that girl. I stared at him. Serena? He smiled. You think she's helping you because she believes in you. My expression hardened. What are you saying? I'm saying. He stepped closer. Everyone has a price. I laughed. You sound desperate. His smile disappeared. Ask her where she got those documents. I froze. Then he walked away. I found Serena in my father's office. Where did you get the financial records? She looked up. Why? Victor said you had access to information you shouldn't have. Her expression changed. For a moment, she looked genuinely afraid. Then she closed the laptop. There are things I haven't told you. My heart sank. What things? She stood. Someone has been helping us. Who? I don't know. Then how do you know they're helping us? Because every time we're about to hit a dead end, another file appears. Another clue. Another piece of evidence. I stared at her. Why didn't you tell me? Because they made me promise. Who? She looked toward the office door. They said if I told you, they would make sure I never worked in finance again. My anger disappeared. So you've been receiving information from someone inside the company? She nodded. And you don't know who? No. I looked around the office. For the first time, I realized the person helping us might have been standing in this building the entire time, watching everything, listening to everything, waiting for the right moment. Then my phone buzzed. A message. You are closer than you think. Another appeared. Victor is not the mastermind. I stared at the screen. Then the final message arrived. Look at the woman your father married. My blood went cold. Because there was only one woman that message could mean. My father's second wife. And suddenly, the entire story changed. The message stayed on my screen. Look at the woman your father married. I read it twice, then a third time. Serena watched my face. What is it? I turned the phone toward her. She went silent. My father's wife? She nodded slowly. Jaden. I know. I grabbed my jacket. We're going to find out why. By the time we reached my father's residence, the house was already quiet, too quiet. The security team had been dismissed for the night. My father's wife was sitting alone in the living room, calm, perfectly dressed, like nothing in the world could possibly touch her. She looked up when we entered. Jaden, I stopped. How did you know I was coming? She smiled. I've known you long enough to know you don't come here unless something is wrong. I studied her. For years I'd barely paid attention to her. She was simply the woman my father married after my mother died. She had always been polite, elegant, patient, almost too patient. I placed the documents on the table. Northbridge. Her expression didn't move. What's that? Don't. She looked at Serena, then back at me. Don't what? Pretend you don't know. She smiled faintly. You've always been emotional, Jaden, and you've always been good at hiding things. Her smile disappeared. For the first time, I saw something behind her eyes. Not fear, calculation. She stood. You should go home. This is my father's house. No, she looked directly at me. This is your father's life. A pause. And you've spent 28 years pretending you were entitled to it. I stepped closer. Maybe I am. She laughed softly. You don't even know what you're fighting for. Then tell me. She stared at me. You want the truth? Yes. Your father didn't build that company alone. I frowned. I know. No. She shook her head. You don't. Then she walked toward the window. Your father trusted people. People who became rich because of him. People who became powerful because of him. People who eventually realized, she turned around, that they didn't need him anymore. I understood. You're talking about Victor, she smiled. Victor is a businessman. And you're what? Her smile vanished. I'm the woman who has been cleaning up your father's mistakes for years. My phone rang. The hospital. I answered immediately. Mr. Cross? Yes. Your father has taken a turn for the worse. My chest tightened. What happened? He's unconscious. I looked at Serena. We're coming. I hung up. When I turned back, my father's wife was gone. The front door was open. She had disappeared. At the hospital, doctors were moving quickly. Machines surrounded my father. His condition had become critical. I stood outside the room. For the first time, the company didn't matter. The money didn't matter. Victor didn't matter. I just wanted my father to open his eyes. Serena stood beside me. Then my phone buzzed. A file had been sent to me. No message. Just one document. I opened it. A list of payments, dates, names, signatures. Then I saw it. The approval signature on the earliest transfer. My father's wife. Not Victor. I looked at Serena. This goes back years. She nodded. And Victor, I scrolled down. His name appeared everywhere, but beside it was another name. Evelyn Cross. My father's wife, the mastermind. Victor wasn't the person controlling the operation. He was just the person she put in position to execute it. And suddenly, everything made sense. The suspicious board appointments, the hidden companies, the transfers, the pressure on my father, even the warnings. Someone inside the company had been trying to expose her. The next morning, I called an emergency board meeting. Everyone was there. Victor, the directors, the lawyers, the executives, and me. I walked into the room carrying a single folder. Victor smiled. You're wasting everyone's time. I placed the folder on the table. No, I looked at him. I'm wasting yours. The room went silent. Victor leaned back. You think you can walk in here and accuse people because your father is sick? No. I opened the folder. I can accuse you because I have evidence. I slid the first document across the table. Northbridge, then another. Stonebridge Capital. Another. Crown Advisory. His smile began to disappear. You moved company funds through shell companies. That isn't proof. I placed another document down. Your signature. He looked at it. Then at me. You don't understand what you're looking at. I smiled. That's what you told me last time. He leaned forward. You're still the same spoiled boy who walked into this company and tried to fire people because you didn't like them. The room went quiet. I looked at him. You're right. A few directors exchanged glances. I was that boy. I closed the folder. But I'm not him anymore. Victor smiled. You think dating some accountant made you a businessman? Serena's expression hardened. I didn't move. No. I looked directly at him. She taught me something you never learned. Victor raised an eyebrow. What? I pushed the final document toward him. Numbers don't lie, and neither do signatures. The room went silent. Victor stared at the document, and for the first time, I saw something I'd never seen on his face before. Fear. His face changed, because this one wasn't from Northbridge. It was from a private account. The account belonged to Evelyn. Victor stared at it. Then he looked around the room. She did this, I nodded. You're not the mastermind, Victor. Silence. You're the man she trusted to do the dirty work. His jaw tightened. You have no idea what you're talking about. I know enough. I stood. You stole from my father. You manipulated the board. You moved company shares. You tried to push him out of his own company. Victor stood too. You think your father is innocent? That stopped me. Victor stepped closer. Ask him why he trusted your stepmother. Ask him why he ignored every warning. Ask him why he gave her access to everything. I stared at him. Then Victor smiled. Your father created this. I shook my head. No. I looked him in the eyes. You and she did. He laughed. You still don't understand power. I stepped closer. Power isn't owning the most shares. I paused. It's knowing what to do when everyone who has more experience than you is trying to take everything from you. His smile disappeared. And right now? I leaned forward. You're out of moves. The doors opened. Law enforcement walked in. Victor turned. I didn't. One of the officers approached him. Victor Cross? Yes? You're under investigation for financial fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. Victor looked at me. You can't do this, I answered quietly. I didn't. I pointed toward the documents. You did. As they took him away, he looked back at me one final time. You'll never understand what your father did to that woman. I stared at him. Maybe not. Then I said, but I understand what you did to my father. There was still one person left, Evelyn. We found her at a private airport. She was trying to leave the country. When she saw me, she didn't run. She simply smiled. You finally figured it out. I walked toward her. Why? She laughed. Because your father was going to give everything to you. And? I spent years beside that man. I helped him build his empire. I watched him become obsessed with a woman who died decades ago. Her voice became colder. And then I watched him prepare to hand everything to the son he could barely look at. I stared at her. So you decided to take it? No, she smiled. I decided to take what I believed I had earned. You destroyed him. He destroyed himself. You used Victor. Yes. You manipulated the board. Yes. You moved his money. Yes. I shook my head. And you thought nobody would find out? She looked at me. I thought you wouldn't be smart enough to find out. That hurt. Not because she insulted me, because she had believed it. And for a moment, I thought about the boy who walked into his father's company years ago, thinking money was the only thing that mattered. I was no longer that boy. I turned away. You're done, she smiled. Your father will never love you. I stopped. That sentence hit the deepest place in me. She continued. He loved your mother. And when she died, he never recovered. I looked back at her. Maybe you're right, she smiled. But you know what? I walked toward the exit. He finally told me himself. Her smile faded. He told me he was sorry. And then I left. 3 days later, my father's condition stabilized. The doctors said he was lucky. I didn't feel lucky. I felt tired. But when he finally opened his eyes, the first thing he asked was, "Where's Jaden?" I walked into the room. He looked at me. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. Then he reached for my hand. I gave it to him. His fingers were weak, but they were warm. "I failed you," he whispered. I shook my head. "Dad." No, he looked at me. "Let me say it." His eyes filled with tears. "I spent 28 years giving you everything except what you actually needed." A tear rolled down his cheek, and I called that love. I couldn't speak. "I blamed you for something that was never your fault." He squeezed my hand. "Your mother didn't die because of you. She died bringing you into this world." He swallowed. "And I spent my life punishing the wrong person." I looked down. Then he said the words I'd waited my entire life to hear. "I love you, Jaden." My chest tightened. He smiled through his tears. "I should have told you that when you were 5, not when I was 28. I laughed quietly. "You're right." He laughed too. Then he pulled me closer. "I don't need you to become me. I just need you to become better than I was." I nodded. "I will." Weeks later, my father was discharged. The company was still recovering. The board had been rebuilt, the stolen money was being traced, and I finally understood why my father had spent so many years pushing me away. It wasn't because I was worthless. It was because he never learned how to survive losing someone he loved. And I had spent my entire life trying to make him love me, when what I really needed was to stop measuring my worth by his silence. Serena was waiting outside the hospital. She smiled when she saw me. "So? Are you finally going to learn accounting?" I laughed. "Absolutely not." She rolled her eyes. "You're hopeless." Maybe I took her hand. "But I have a good teacher." She smiled, and for the first time, I wasn't walking away from my father's company because I hated it. I was walking toward it because I finally understood what it meant. Not money, not power, not a title, responsibility, and maybe family. Looking back, I used to think the greatest thing my father could leave me was his company. I was wrong. He left me something far more valuable, the chance to become a man he didn't have to be ashamed of. And Serena taught me something else. Sometimes the person who helps you rebuild your life isn't the person who gives you money. It's the person who sees who you could become before you can see it yourself. So if there's one thing I want you to remember from my story, it's this. Money can give you comfort. Power can give you influence, but neither one can replace love. And if you've spent your life trying to prove that you're worthy of someone's love, stop. You don't have to earn your value from someone else's approval. Sometimes you just have to become brave enough to believe you're already worth loving. If this story meant something to you, don't just leave without telling me. What would you have done if you were Jaden? Would you have forgiven a father who spent 28 years pushing you away after finally hearing the truth? Or would some wounds simply be too deep? Tell me in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story, like the video, subscribe to the channel and share it with someone who needs to hear that message. Because there are more stories coming, and the next one might make you question everything you thought you knew about love, money, and family. I'll see you in the next story.